I should be dead. I looked at it one time, and I've ejected from an airplane too, right before an impact. Yesterday was the anniversary of the day that I took Ginger out and just about ended my life.
Wow.
And that's why I've got a gold tooth.
One thing that I can't figure out, and I don't know if this actually meaningfully changes any actions other than just to be on the lookout, but do you think this is a really well thought out, century-long plan of some type of evil, some type of bad, some type of whatever? Like, you look at, you look throughout history, there's a lot of coincidences going on, even some of the depths of the conspiracies around the Titanic, moving into the Jekyll Island, moving into 6102, into the, nixing of the gold standard, and boom, boom, boom. Like, you've kind of got a bunch of interesting coincidences and a bunch of families that show up all in the same time, around the same ideas. Do you think this is some type of evil force that is getting towards its eventual goal or whatever? Or is this just negative incentives in a corrupt world?
I'd say there's two sides to that discussion, and they're both related, meaning that if you've ever heard the term chaos of war, you realize that in very chaotic, volatile times, people begin to devolve into what is in their best interest. If you look at what's going on right now with insider trading, that's rampant, not even being hidden anymore, just basically in your face.
Dude, the Nancy Pelosi stock tracker is like,
fuck you.
Yeah, she doesn't care at
care.
all.
Like, fuck you.
Yeah.
So
money laundering. Just quickly on that, did you know that when the Ukraine war started, Canada was sending a whole bunch of money to Ukraine, and FinTrack, which is our equivalent of FinCEN, was offline for 8 months. So the money laundering body of Canada goes dark for the better part almost a year, while we're sending money to the money laundering capital of the world. And again, my head goes, well, how convenient. What are the chances of that? Like it seems
so. Separating this idea of the chaos of war and people devolving into their base instincts, which for people, many Bitcoiners, I think, as a group, are very, morally and ethically aligned with what you should be as a human being, which is a wonderful thing for our community.
Why do you think that is?
I think it has to do with zoomed out perspective around what it means to maybe it's all about really what you said earlier, that is understanding money. Maybe what we really see is that money is behind so much of the evil that we see going on around the planet. So on the one hand, you have the chaos of war, but there are, without doubt, now Simon Dixon's, with his encyclopedic memory regarding different events, he can build a very strong case for a really evil empire, like a Dr. Evil type of program. But from my perspective, what I see is momentary alignment where people in positions of power are working hard to get their agenda. Probably the greatest example at the turn of the century is the start of the Fed in 1913 and Jekyll Island, which I think you mentioned. There's no doubt in my mind, yes, that is a conspiracy of powerful people that have an agenda, and they are successful in that case. But you also have to realize that unless you are in a position where you can use that insider information like we were just discussing, this chaotic system that we're in right now is going to be, there's going to be a lot of flotsam that comes out of the wreckage from this. There will be a lot of dead bodies floating down the river from, companies, multinationals, people that are on the wrong side of these trades. And this chaos that we're seeing right now and where it could go, it's going to be very difficult for people. Again, if you'll just fall back to that first principle that I said, if you understand where this is going, you need as much Bitcoin as you can get. You need it in self-custody, and you need to protect yourself for this, upcoming climatic end to the fourth turning.
Yeah. So do the evil people then with an agenda, how on earth did they miss Bitcoin? Or did they? This is something I can't wrap my head around. Someone with a low time preference to create, what happened on Jekyll Island was obviously, in my opinion anyways, evil and demonic, like just terrible. these people have an agenda, clearly. They work through their steps over 100 years with, 6102, and then the debasement of the dollar shortly thereafter, and the print in the 40s, and then the 70s, and then in 2001, and then in 2008, and then in 2020, and then in 2026 or 2025, and these prints. So 100 years later, these evil people are like, it's working. Like we did it. We put this plan in motion, and it's working. How do they miss what is clearly the threat vector of Bitcoin?
I think that if you just step back for a moment and just look at your own experience with people on a daily basis regarding Bitcoin, there's usually two barriers to understanding Bitcoin. One of them is age. I sit here as an outlier. I had Larry Lepard and myself and Bob Burnett were sitting out last night. We had a beer and we were smoking cigars. And you look around at the three of us.
That's got to be the most boomer thing you could be doing at a Bitcoin conference. We're all good boomers. For you guys.
We're all boomers.
Solving the world's problems, I'm sure.
We solved everything. But sitting there, I looked at them and I thought, it's a very unusual thing to see three of us at our age group that grok this. And so age is a barrier. And I think it has to do more, again, with what we went when we were discussing about what is physical, hard assets versus digital. It's a really hard thing for older people to grok. And then the second thing is education. The more educated you are, especially if it's in any kind of a TradFi arena, you have two conflicts. For one thing, that system works for you. So you want to keep it going on and on. These people that you're discussing have a vested interest in that system. They want it to continue. So they don't want to necessarily see Bitcoin succeed. And they definitely aren't in that. If they're in that educational framework in a traditional world or in traditional finance, everything they've been taught would lead them to basically call Bitcoin either a Ponzi, a scam, a fraud, not real. Everything that you've heard right now. So I think those are the real problems.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It makes me very sad when I speak to people with such logic, understanding, and they agree with me. How should money look? Should it look like something that can't be printed, can't be controlled, can't be, and then they fall back to, but if we can't control it, then the bad people will use it. It's like, you don't understand. The bad people are in charge right now. They're preventing the good people from using it. And it's that mindset shift, that state propaganda, that whatever you see, which has obviously led me into quite a libertarian, anarchist type of lifestyle. People think anarchy is chaos, but really anarchy is the most beautiful form of society. It's rules and no rulers. It's the perfect essence of a trusting, loving, moral society in that we have a set of rules, with people to enforce them. The group should enforce them, but we don't have someone that can change the rules. And that changing of the rules is probably the biggest threat that we see.
Yes, the only thing I will say again is the more you study history of man's and woman's imprint on planet Earth, you see nothing but conflict. Endless conflict. And endless struggles for survival. You can look at, if you go back 100,000 years, well, even if you go back to 40,000 years when Neanderthals were still here, you can go to you can see where there are buried skeletons, and you can see bone damage similar to what we saw in the rodeo. There are people there that were doing close-in combat with big animals and to survive. And that idea of resources, power, defending even food sources and stuff it's a very long history. So when you say anarchy, there are different views. There are different ways to view anarchy. For me, I think when I said that Bitcoiners are morally and ethically aligned with what it would be to be a really good human being, that's where I would like to see this go.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a very difficult process to get there. Maybe we will need our own sovereign. Maybe it'll be like an Atlas Shrugged. We'll have to have our own little valley somewhere where we all congregate and take care of each other and live a life that's value-based.
Yeah, Atlas Shrugged is such a Bitcoin book.
Yeah.
Such a Bitcoin book. It's amazing how many people, understood Bitcoin before Bitcoin. I often say there are forms of Bitcoiners that just don't own Bitcoin yet. And I think that Ayn Rand was certainly, well, she doesn't own Bitcoin. She'll never own Bitcoin, but
she would have probably.
She would have, exactly. As we maybe look to wrap up here, George, one thing I'm deeply curious in, and one thing you actually hinted at just a minute ago, is this concept of being open-minded. Yeah, the reason that you are, I was going to say so old, but I won't say that. But the reason you are your age.
I've actually seen dinosaurs fly.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah, it was quite an event. I'll tell you. You had to watch out.
You got your like Fred Flintstone in the in the car there with the legs. Yeah. You and my dad would say the same thing. So you changed your mind, or you had an open mind, you had an open perspective on Bitcoin. And part of what I'm trying to do with these conversations, with this podcast, is just explore objective truth. I believe in an objective truth. I believe that there is one, guiding truth that we have to find. And Bitcoin is objectively the best form of money. But outside of Bitcoin, what's one thing that you have changed your perspective on lately? As I pursue objective truth in my family, like my family the last 5 years is overhauled. We are new school system, new city, different, even a difference of how my wife and I lead, more children now. Like it's been, we're just pursuing this objectively good life. The food we eat is different. The way that we use technology is different, all this stuff. And so I'm constantly, where are my blind spots? And so selfishly, I want to know, but what's something that I don't know how old you are, but let's say for 50 years you believed, and then all of a sudden you don't anymore.
I'm 71 right now.
Okay.
So
dang, I hope that I am like this based at 71.
Well, I take one pill a day.
Which one? Wait, don't say it starts with a V.
How much would you pay me to if I told you what that was?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. Maybe with AI, I can just check.
I don't take any pills. But I do. I work out every day, and I really am a strong believer in lifting weights for both men and women, especially also. So I take good care of myself. But the thing is, what I was going to tell you is that when I say what pill it is, we are probably going to have coming up in the next 10 years, if getting through this crisis, if we come out on the other side okay, we're going to see a world where you basically can probably extend your lifetime for a long period. So you'll have boomers trying to extend their life to, that we'll get third and fourth houses because we'll have a lot more marshmallows.
And 2 handshakes.
but what I really want to say here is, what I have learned and what I can pass on right now is that the most precious commodity you have, and related to this discussion, is time. Time is everything. And people do not understand, all the things you were discussing before, whether it's, cars, clothes, shoes, you take nothing with you when you leave.
Yeah.
You leave, I used to be a cop, and I remember going in a morgue, and, you got a toe tag on you. That's it. You're sitting in a bag. When they unzip the bag, you're naked there. And you got a toe tag on you so they can keep track of you, and that's it. You leave, when you cross the river Styx out of this planet, you got nothing with you. You're with the boatman, and you're just sitting there. Time is very precious, and the things that we either get involved in, whether it's material things on this planet, or arguments, or whatever it is we're involved in, they're all eating away at that time. And I don't think there's any human being that ever had a chance sitting in a bed and maybe knew they were drawing their last breath, that they wanted to wish they'd bought something else. They were probably thinking about the people that they loved in life or that were important to them. So, I would strongly encourage people to realize that time is finite, and that your relationships on this planet are the most important thing, more important than Bitcoin. And you owe it to yourself as a human being to live your life with honor, integrity, strength, and do the right thing.
Yeah, wow. Well, that's probably a powerful place to end. I could probably sit here and chat to you and ask. I feel like you're just a wealth of knowledge that I should draw on.
people laugh and they'll say something like, well, the most interesting man, but that's not true. I've just been very fortunate. I'm really lucky to be here. I should be dead. I looked at it one time, and I've ejected from an airplane too, right before impact, a fighter. And so, I'm just grateful. And maybe when you've had so many close calls in life, you remember the gratitude. Yesterday was the anniversary of the day that I took Ginger out and just about ended my life.
Wow.
And, it's why I've got a gold tooth.
Okay.
And, the dentist didn't want to put that gold tooth in.
What do you want to do?
He asked 3 times. And the last time it was, are you sure you want to do this? Because he said, this is at the front of your mouth. People will see it. I said, yeah.
That's the point.
Every time I look in a mirror, I want to be reminded. I
Right.
want to look at that and I want to see and think, you know what? I shouldn't be here. So just remember, time's finite, and do the right thing in life. Embrace people.
So, one thing you just mentioned is you cross the river Styx, you're with the boatman.
Yeah.
Who's the boatman?
Well, if you've ever, that's an ancient tale. The idea that, and sometimes in Roman history, I believe the boatman, you would have 2 gold coins, one in each eye, placed upon you, to prepare you to cross the river Styx to the other side, and you weren't coming back. It's just the idea that there's a final moment in your life. I mean, and it's coming. It comes for everyone. Your final block's out there somewhere. It's coming your way. And just like mine, I can actually see it. It's pretty close. And so you've got a limited time to do the right things in life.